placing of these first American units into the line by Marshal Foch had immediate results. Inexperienced though they were, they plunged on through the mud to reinforce the British and the French. And often it was their presence that turned the tide. At Chateau Thierry and in the Argonne, they hammered away at the advancing enemy, and once again, as in 1914, he faltered. Behind the bulging British front, almost disintegrating, but not quite, Douglas Haig issued his famous backs to the wall appeal. From everywhere and anywhere, units were scraped together and flung into the line. It was a moment for every man, fit and able, and even for many not so fit and able. The Germans stepped up their attacks, but try as they might, the thin khaki line held firm. And behind, Foch marshaled his strength until a solid wall of resistance stood between the enemy and his objectives. Paris was saved. Amiens was saved. The spring offensive was spent, and Germany was spent. And so the Allies resumed their build-up, and winding lines of troops moved up to the line which, though now stable, was in places barely 50 miles from the French capital. Then, from this closer range, Big Bertha spoke to Paris. Every 15 minutes, a shell from the German monster gun burst somewhere in the pattern of streets which is Paris. But Paris had known siege before in 1870 and took it in her stride. Business as usual, and that meant to entertaining the Allied soldiers on leave. Notre Dame, the Louvre, the Place de la Concorde. Paris doesn't change much in the essentials. True, many of her fine monuments could be seen only through the sandbags that protected them from possible hits by the big German gun. But still you stood and stared and gaped at it all, storing it all up to tell the folks back in Sydney, Wellington, or Kansas City. To tell them about the Paris, once again under enemy fire, that still manages to go on being the same old Paris. The Folies Bergère. Now, there's something they haven't got in Sydney, Wellington, or Kansas City. Won't be quite so easy to explain it away, either. Not some of the details, anyway. The one thing about a war is that you can see places that otherwise you can only dream about. But, as the song said, how are you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris?